It's Wednesday night after a long day, and the last thing you want to do is cook dinner from scratch. But you still want a satisfying, tasty meal without the guilt? Enter your freezer's sidekick, Cauliflower. From thin and crispy cauliflower crust pizzas to all-natural white meat chicken tenders and more, Cauliflower is gluten-free always, satisfies every craving, and is ready in minutes. Cauliflower is available in freezer aisles nationwide. Visit eatcauliflower.com/where-to-buy to find a store near you.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the podcast, its creators, or sponsors. If you would like to discuss a missing persons case on this podcast, please be sure to visit missingpersonspodcast.net. This episode may contain unsettling or disturbing subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Missing Persons, a podcast dedicated to spreading the word about people who have vanished under mysterious or unexplained circumstances and the family members who are looking for answers. I'm Jess Betancourt.
And I'm Mike Morford. Together we created this podcast to help give a voice to people who continue to look for their missing loved ones. In some cases, even after decades have gone by. In each episode, you'll hear from Jess giving listeners the backstory and the basic facts of the disappearance.
Then Mike will speak with someone who's intimately connected to the missing person, and his guest will share their story with us.
Please stay tuned at the conclusion of this episode to hear about our Patreon program and our commitment to help find people who have gone missing. We'll also share with you where you can find more information and how you can join our team and help our efforts. You'll get recommendations for other podcasts we think you'll enjoy, and more.
So sit back and enjoy this episode, and who knows, maybe you can help us find someone who's missing. Episode 13, Jamie Lusher. James Donald Lusher was born on October 15, 1976. Jamie, as he was known to everyone, had a sister, Jennifer, who was just a year and a half older. When Jamie was 3 and Jennifer was 5, they were in a serious accident along with their mother. Jamie suffered traumatic head injury that resulted in cognitive disabilities. Although he had no physical disabilities, Jamie had the developmental level of a 12-year-old, along with extreme hyperactivity. Jamie was 16 when he went missing, but because of his childish functionality and the fact that he was small for his age, just 5'1", he seemed much younger. Jamie's parents divorced in 1992, the year Jamie went missing. Jamie and Jennifer moved in with their dad at his home on Ridgeview Terrace in Westfield, Massachusetts, a blue-collar town of 38,000 residents in the western part of the New England state. Jamie was enrolled at Westfield Alternative School, but according to James Sr., Jamie's dad, Jamie did not care for school. He preferred to ride his dirt bike in the woods and play with his dog. He had few friends because he did not have much in common with most teens his age, so he spent a lot of time with his sister and her friends. His family describes him as a fun-loving and happy-go-lucky child. On the day that he disappeared, Friday, November 6, 1992, Jamie wanted to go to a bike race that was taking place in the town of Blandford, about 12 miles away, where his grandmother lived. He begged his sister for a ride, since he could not drive. But Jennifer had to work, so Jamie took the school bus home from school and then set out to ride to Blandford on his mountain bike, a grayish-green Huffy that he had just received as a present for his 16th birthday a couple of weeks prior. But Jamie never turned up at his grandmother's. That evening, when he didn't come home, his father tried calling around, and he and Jennifer drove the route Blandford and around their own area, but found no trace of Jamie. His grandmother never saw him that day, and there are no confirmed sightings of him after he left his father's house. A server at Friendly's in Westfield reported having seen Jamie at the restaurant on November 8th. This was 2 days after Jamie had failed to turn up in Blandford, but this sighting was never confirmed, and his family doubts that it was Jamie. When the family reported Jamie missing on Saturday, the police told them they would wait and see whether Jamie showed up at school the following Monday. It seems the police, knowing Jamie to be 16 and not recognizing his reduced mental faculties, initially suspected that Jamie had left on his own and was hiding out somewhere. They interviewed a neighborhood girl who told them that she had seen Jamie and asked him why he was hiding out. He told her that he was afraid he would get in trouble for leaving. The family did not buy this, knowing that Jamie, who did not function well independently, would not have left of his own volition. They were extremely concerned that Jamie was lost and hurt somewhere, and they spent some frantic days looking for him. 5 days after his family last saw him, on November 11, 1992, a hunter found Jamie's bicycle near a pond off Bennett Road in a wooded area of Westfield. This was about 4 miles from Jamie's house, in the opposite direction of Blandford. Jamie's family did not believe that Jamie would have voluntarily abandoned his brand new bike, and it didn't seem likely that he would have biked to that area at all. Westfield police and volunteers conducted extensive air and ground searches of the area where the bike was located, and even drained the pond and used canines. The desperate family consulted psychics. The case was featured on America's Most Wanted in 1993, and police received 70 tips in connection with that broadcast, but no trace of Jamie has ever been found. After 21 years, in July of 2013, Massachusetts state officials held a press conference announcing a potential break in the case. A longtime suspect had provided a detailed confession to Jamie's murder. This suspect was Louis S. Lent, a convicted child murderer who had killed another child in Massachusetts, 12-year-old James Bernardo, in 1990. James had last been seen on his bike riding near a shopping center in Pittsfield where Lent worked. 3 hunters stumbled on James's naked body about a month after he vanished in a wooded area outside Ithaca, New York. Louis Lent had been apprehended after he attempted to abduct a 12-year-old Rebecca Savarese from Pittsfield, Massachusetts, a town about 45 miles from Westfield, in January 1994. Rebecca was on her way to school when a grungy-looking Lent approached her and brandished a gun, ordering her into his blue pickup truck. Rebecca slipped out of her backpack and ran, and a passerby jotted down the truck's license plate number. The police were able to track Lent down at his home, where they found him eating a tuna fish sandwich. In the course of police interrogation, Lent confessed to 2 child murders. As a result, in 1996, he was convicted of the 1990 murder of James Bernardo and sentenced to life without the possibility of parole at the Old Colony Correctional Institution in Bridgewater, Massachusetts. The other murder Lent copped to was the 1993 murder of a Litchfield, New York girl named Sarah Ann Wood. 12-year-old Sarah had last been seen riding her bicycle a mile from her home. Her bike was found leaning up against a tree. Lent pleaded guilty to killing Sarah and was convicted of killing her despite the absence of a body. He drew a map showing the location where investigators could find her remains in the Adirondack Mountains, but unfortunately they were never found. Authorities believe that it is possible that Lent deliberately misled them as to the location because there were other bodies there that he did not want found. They continued to interrogate him regularly, visiting him in prison often to try to get more information out of the serial child killer they believed was responsible for more missing regional kids, including, possibly, Jamie Lusher. It's unclear exactly when this took place, but according to officials, Louis Lent confessed that he had killed Jamie and dumped his body in Greenwater Pond in Beckett, Massachusetts, about 30 miles from where Jamie was last seen. Lent said he had picked up Jamie around 4:30 p.m. and dumped his bike near the pond where it was later found. He knew the exact location. It seems likely that Jamie's small stature and somewhat immature demeanor led Lent to believe he was younger than his 16 years, since Lent's known victims were younger children. Authorities stated that they had agreed not to prosecute Lent for Jamie's murder in return for Lent's disclosure of the location of Jamie's body. Remember, Lent was already in prison for life for the murder of James Bernardo. They initiated a search for Jamie's body in Greenwater Pond. This is a huge pond, 88 square acres of water that runs as much as 60 feet deep in spots. 18 state police divers plumbed the depths of Greenwater Pond for 3 days, using sonar equipment and concentrating on a specific quadrant of the north side of the pond the size of a football field. They failed to find any human remains or any of Jamie's clothing or the hiking boots he was wearing, a recent birthday gift from his sister. Although police considered Jamie's case to be resolved, searches of the pond in combination with Massachusetts State Police dive team training exercises continue annually. Jamie's dad and sister have said they will consider Greenwater Pond to be Jamie's final resting spot. This is according to Jamie's dad. Lent unwittingly placed my son in a place that my son would have loved, he said to the media. Jamie Lusher remains a missing person. Jamie Lusher was a white male with brown hair and blue eyes. At the time of his disappearance, he was 5 foot 1 inch tall and weighed about 110 pounds. He was wearing a black t-shirt, plaid shirt, black jeans, and his new hiking boots. If you have any information about Jamie's disappearance, please call the Westfield Police Department at 413-562-5411. Mike Morford sat down to talk with Jamie's sister, Jennifer Nowak, for Missing Persons. That conversation is coming up after a word from our sponsors.
It's Wednesday night after a long day, and the last thing you want to do is cook dinner from scratch. But you still want a satisfying, tasty meal without the guilt? Enter your freezer's sidekick, Cauliflower. From thin and crispy cauliflower crust pizzas to all-natural white meat chicken tenders and crowd-pleasing snacks, Cauliflower satisfies every craving. Cauliflower's products are your favorite comfort foods, but made better for you and gluten-free always. The best part? You don't have to sacrifice taste or time, so you can honor your cravings without compromising. Craving pizza? You can enjoy Cauliflower's delicious margarita pizza for only 370 calories for half the pizza. Looking for easy snacks that kids and adults alike will love? Cauliflower's baked, never-fried pizza snacks are nostalgia reimagined and ready in 5 minutes. Cauliflower's products are available in freezer aisles nationwide. Visit eatcauliflower.com/where-to-buy to find a store near you.
Let's be honest. Most of us have a love-hate relationship with wired bras. We love the lift, but hate the digging. We love the support, but hate feeling trapped. Well, Knix just changed everything with FreeFlex, a wired bra actually designed to work with your body, not against it. FreeFlex features a revolutionary flexible wire that moves when you move, bends when you bend, and keeps everything exactly where you want it. No poking, no stabbing, no constant readjusting, just freedom to move. It also has a demi-cup shape for a natural lift with a lower neckline that flatters in everything from V-necks to dresses. And because it's from Knix, it's available in sizes for every body. Experience the first wired bra you'll actually want to wear all day. Visit Knix.com for 15% off your order with FreeFlex15. That's KNIX.com, code FreeFlex15 for 15% off. Knix.com.
Hi, Jennifer, and thanks for coming on Missing Persons to discuss your brother, Jamie's case.
Yeah, no problem.
When Jamie vanished in 1992, he was 16 years old. How old were you?
I was 18 years old. I'm a year and 10 months older than my brother. Actually, my brother had disappeared right after his birthday because his birthday was October 15th, so he was like freshly 16 years old.
Were you and your brother close?
Oh yeah, we were like Batman and Robin. You know what I mean? We were like super, super close. I mean, he was difficult to get along with. Any little sibling will get on your nerves. But yeah, him and I were really, really close. We liked all the same things. We did all the same things. You know, he was always, wherever I went, he was always with me. Even my best friend, I'll tell you that was like her brother. Like, you know what I mean? Because he was just always with us. You know, everything we did. So. Yeah, we were pretty close.
He probably thought it was cool that you could drive and everything. And how did he think? What did he think about that?
What's going on drives when I got my license?
Yeah, did he want to go with you all the time and spend time with you?
Oh my God, are you kidding me? I got my grandmother's car. My dad bought off my grandma for like $1, and then so I got that car all hooked up and ready to go. You know, we didn't. You know, we just get in the car, we just drive everywhere. And back then you could do that. Like, you just get in the car and just drive everywhere. There wasn't any much restrictions. So we go all over the place, all over the hill towns, the Western Mass. And we go to, like, little fairs and all sorts of stuff. It wasn't a lot of time with him, though, because I was 18, yeah. So maybe I had my driver's license for maybe like a year and a half. So it was fun.
And if you can, if you would tell us a little bit about Jamie, what kind of person he was and some of your memories of him.
Well, my brother had a learning disability. He had, my mother got us in a Jeep accident when I was 5 and my brother was 3. So he had a major, major head injury. So he was like a normal kid, but his mental, his intelligence, it was delayed. So like him being 16 years old, it was more like he was like a 10-year-old kid. You know what I mean? So, sometimes it was difficult with him because, you know, he wasn't the same grade level like everybody else was. He wasn't doing quite the same activities that all the other kids are doing. Like, you know, he'd be playing with like G.I. Joes and the dirt and stuff like that, where the other kids would be like, going on like motocross bikes and having girlfriends and smoking cigarettes for the first time. And my brother just wanted to like go in the backyard and play matchboxes. You know what I mean? It was kind of like that's how kind of he was growing up. I mean, he was fine. I mean, he's up with the movies and the music and all that kind of stuff. It's just his core was a little more, not, I don't know, it's hard to explain. Like his mentality wasn't, where mine was when I was 18 and he was 16, or if I was 14 and he was like 13, 12. It wasn't the same.
So he had maybe a little bit more of a innocent view of the world and the stuff he was interested in.
Happy-go-lucky. That was my brother. Nothing bothered him. He was just like, yeah, parents are getting divorced, whatever, mom, dad got in a fight, whatever, mom threw dad out, whatever. Where I was like, oh my God, my world's coming to an end. But he was just like, yeah, whatever, we'll just go ride our bikes somewhere, whatever. Happy-go-lucky, that kid. He didn't have any worries in the world.
Sometimes
I don't even think he truly knew that he actually had a learning disability, because he was just like, whatever.
And sometimes
that's how he was.
Sometimes that's a good thing, because it's something that there's an innocence there that, the people like that.
Yeah, I hate to use the word naive, but he was very, very naive about, like who was president and like all that kind of, all of that kind of stuff. He just didn't care. He just did what he wanted to do, and that's it. He didn't care. Made him fun.
Was he like a trusting person? Was he? Did he stick to people that he knew? That kind of stuff. He didn't have a lot of friends because of that mental disabilities that he had. Because he had hyperactivity extremely bad, and so he could never sit still to learn anything. So a lot of people with him, like he had his good friend in the neighborhood. His friend Guy Quasnell, he was one of his best friends, but that was it. And then my brother hung out with me and my friends, because we're all like, yeah, it's just Jen's little brother or whatever, you know what I mean? And like, so he only had like a very handful of friends, and we had some family too that he loved to hang out with too. But it's just he just had that one friend, and that was it. Really, it's kind of sad, but sometimes that's how it happens. And from you mentioned him being a little bit more of his mind being a little bit more innocent, or maybe at a younger phase, essentially.
Yeah.
Did he know about strangers and to avoid them?
Oh yeah,
like
he
that?
knew about. Don't think he didn't know about stranger danger, and if a man touches you, like he knew all of that. He knew all of that. It's just like that happy-go-lucky. So somebody's like, hey, little Lusher, come here. I know your sister. Come jump in the Jeep with us to go drive around. My brother's like, yeah, sure, let's go. You know what I mean? Like, but he knew that if something truly went down from that, like if somebody was hurting him or, touching him, he knew that. He knew that difference. He knew that. He definitely knew that.
Well, it takes us back to November 1992 when Jamie vanished. How well do you remember that day? How clear is it? And do you remember how things unfolded?
Unfortunately, I have one of those memories that, like, I can remember specific things exactly the way it happened, like it happened yesterday. I remember we were in school, and there was a mountain bike race going on up in Blanford, which is maybe like a 15, 20-minute ride from here up to where my grandmother lived in Blanford, Massachusetts. And my brother really wanted to go. And I'm like, Jamie, you have to work after school. I can't drive you up there. I have to go to work. So that day we all got out of school. He jumped on the hood of my car. He's like, drive me to Grams. I'm like, I can't drive you to Grams. You better go catch that bus or you're going to miss the bus. You need to go. So I guess he went on the bus, and I went to my best friend's house, and then I went to work. My father, and then after work, I went to a party at my girlfriend's house. She had like a family party. And my dad called me. He said, your brother never came home from school. I'm like, Dad, he came home from school. I saw him get on the bus. I yelled at him. I told him to get on the bus. And my brother actually had called me at my best friend's house, and said, hey, give me your autograph. I was like, I can't. I have to go to work. And then so my dad called me, and he said, your brother didn't come home. I'm like, Dad, he went to Grams. I just got his bike and went to Grams. And so my father couldn't get a hold of my grandmother till the next day, and I had slept over that girlfriend's house. I had the party. I'm like 18, just out there, being a teenager. And so my dad called me the next morning, and he was like, your brother was not at Gramps. I'm like, well, I don't know where he is. So then I had to come here to the house, and I actually still live in the house I actually bought my father's home, so I'm still in this house. And so we started looking. We just called my mom. My mom didn't see him, didn't hear from him. My mother was remarried and lived in another house. And so, we start calling people and, calling all friends. And I get in the car. And I got my friends to get together in their cars. We drove all the town looking. That Saturday, I don't know if my dad probably knows a little bit. I think it was the Saturday night, evening time. We went to the police. The police are like, well, we can't do anything until he doesn't show up to school on Monday. And we're like, he can't write his first name. He cannot read. He can't do any of those things. There's no way he's going to be out running away on his own. It's impossible. We can't do anything until he's supposed to. So then that Sunday, my mom, my stepdad, everybody in town was all over Westfield, going up and down Westfield River. We're looking all over the place. And then finally Monday, I didn't go to school, and then the cops were like, okay, we'll start doing stuff. We'll go out there and start looking for him. It was horrendous. It was awful. I've only seen my father cry twice in my entire life, and that was one time, that Sunday night.
So they lost that valuable time getting started searching for your brother.
Yeah, because it was 1992. You know what I mean? There was big cases out there of children, that had been missing prior to him. But it just, he was a boy. I think if it was a girl, if it was a sister, maybe they would have put a little more on it. But, you know what I mean? It was just oh, don't worry, he'll show up to school. We're like, dude, he can't even write his name. If I showed you pictures of his writing, I still have, you would say that's not a 6-year-old, that's a 3rd grader. I'm like, he can't read. He can't do any of that kind of stuff. It's I don't understand what you guys don't think of why he's not coming home tonight. It was awful. And then I didn't go to school for a couple of days, and I had to go back to school, and it was pretty bad.
So it sounds like in the police's mind, they're looking at this as a 16-year-old kid that ran away from home, not looking at it as the mindset of maybe a 10-year-old. Maybe for the 10-year-old child, they would have done something, but in this case, they thought he's a teenager, he's out partying or something like that.
And what doesn't make it any better is my father's 5'3", and my mother was only 4'10". I'm 5 feet tall. My brother was only 5'1", and we were skinny, little children looking. I would get pulled over driving my own car when I was a teenager because I thought I was under 13 years old or something. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So I understand we looked really, really young, and he had the mentality of a 10-year-old. So I can understand why Louis Lent did what he did because of his age and because of his mentality and just what he looked like. You know what I mean? And so I get that. I don't get it, but I get why he was, selected, let's say.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to talk about that. And I wanted to ask one thing. I know you just mentioned that your dad was really upset. It was only one of the only times you saw him cry. Correct me if I'm wrong, did your dad initially think that Jamie was afraid to come home because he thought he might get in trouble, that your dad might be mad at him?
My dad was, not the best with the punishments. We got in trouble. We really got in trouble. my dad was very, very strict. There's things that my friends called him in high school that I won't say now, but, he had his nickname, of what, how his punishments were, but I don't think he would have, because we're just yep, because he's if you're going to hit me, Dad, you're going to hit me. He would just come home. He would just, he was so, Dad didn't care, but he just was so just let it wash off his shoulders. He didn't care. You know what I mean? He would have came home. I always came back, even if I knew I was going to get in trouble. I always came back too. So it was just, I don't think we ever thought of a runaway. We thought from the get go that something happened to him. He tried to ride my grandmother's house and got hurt in the woods. And especially that first winter. Oh my God, my father's some hunters and find him in the woods. I'm like, Dad, don't say that. But from the very get go, we knew something was wrong because, again, he could not write, he could not read. He couldn't get a bus ticket. I don't think he knew how to buy a bus ticket. Let alone try to run away. So from the very get go, we knew that something was wrong and something had happened.
So even if your dad initially thought maybe he's just afraid to come home because he thinks he's getting in trouble, that went out the window pretty quick, and he realized that there was something wrong.
I know, but when this happens, you think like a gazillion different things could happen, different gazillion scenarios. You know what I mean? You think of like your mind goes wild of all, even the alien abduction. Don't tell me that didn't happen in the last 20 years. You know what I mean? Like you think of all these things that could happen to him. Of course, they're awful, horrible things. And so I don't know. It was just awful because my poor dad. He was a single father, trying to raise his two kids. And this happens, and and he was really, really upset, and we're all very, very, very upset. I only had one brother, I'm left alone now, and so, we didn't think it was. We honestly did think something had happened to him in the beginning.
It must have been a lot of pressure for your dad to have to deal with all that on top of. He's still got to take care of, you're 18, so he probably didn't have to take care of you as much as he would Jamie, but he's still responsible for you. He still has to do a job, but in the meantime, he's worried about his son. Did he go out, driving around? Did both of you go driving around to searching areas?
Oh, we went through all, where I live here, down the street, there's this place called the Canal. It's like a washed out, they had there's an upper dam and a lower dam, at the turn of the century, that's all washed out. There's thousands and thousands of dirt bikers and and mountain bikes and walking past. We were all in there for all day on that Sunday, and it was cold. This is November. It was cold. New England is cold. I just remember that first night it being so freezing cold. And so my dad's like, he froze to death in the woods. We gotta find him. And then so we did that whole area, and then we started going, well, he might be down by the Westfield River. So there's all these dirt bikes and mountain bikes and all this kind of stuff down in that area. So we did all of that kind of stuff. It was nonstop for 3 days. And then when they found his bike, we're like, well, that's it. We don't need to search anymore because his bike was found. You know what I mean? It was, it was pretty bad.
Was that an area, that place that you're talking about, the washout, was that a place that Jamie liked to go?
The Canal, yes, the Canal. My husband and I were just down there this weekend. We go to the Canal. We go there for kids. We'd be there for kids. Tell my husband, we tried to build a dam right here one time. We just see, hey, we're going to the Canal. Bye, see you later. That was back in the 90s, though. I mean, it was, it was like the 70s, 80s, 90s. You just kind of went as a group of kids, and you went out all day long, and you stayed out there all day long, and it was okay because your parents knew where you were.
And Jamie had never gone away and been missing for hours or days before that. So this
never, ever. I was the one that threatened, I'm out of here, I'm never coming back. But he never, ever did that. He loved it here. He loved his dog. He loved the house. He loved his holidays. He loved my dad. You know what I mean? He would just never, ever, ever have done anything like that. Never. Never. So
just after Jamie goes missing, there's a witness that comes forward to say that they saw who they thought was Jamie. Did that give your family hope?
Which witness? There was a couple.
And maybe you can go into that. Describe. Maybe you can tell me about the couple different witnesses, if they panned out or if they had any reliable information.
Well, there was the one witness, that the girl who worked at the Friendly's ice cream restaurant where he got picked up. This is the girl I went to high school with. This is the girl that I graduated with. And I remember when she had come forward and said, yeah, I saw your brother. I saw Jamie, in the restaurant with this guy, and he had a leather jacket. I'm like, my brother never didn't own a leather jacket. So it's kind of like wishy-washy. And that girl, we went to school together. We graduated together. I saw her at class reunions. I've seen the girl so many times. She's never once ever said to me, hey, I tried to do the best I could and went to the cops and told them I knew. Never. So I don't believe her. You know what I mean? So there's one witness. Who was the other witness? Was there something in the parking lot, I think? I don't know. I don't remember all this. I think there's somebody in the parking lot too that saw him with the white van or the white truck or whatever that was. There's another person too, so
there was a few different things that have been claimed by people that they saw him or possibly saw him, but in the end, there's nothing to support that, and they might have just been rabbit holes that didn't lead anywhere.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And he was gone. And tell me about finding the bike when the bike was found.
That was the worst.
Did it give you hope, or did that tell you?
No,
that
it made it worse. It made it worse. So now we're like, where the heck is he? Like, what the hell happened? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why is he over on this side of town? We should have been over on that side of town. And so, that side of town, which is the north side of Westfield, we didn't go up. We never rode our bikes up there. I mean, we rode our bikes everywhere, all over town, but we never went up that area. It's all industrial parks. What the heck do we want to do up there? I mean, unless he was like a normal 16-year-old going and like making out or something. You know what I mean? That's the only reason you would go out to that section of Westfield. There was nothing up there. It's all industrial parks. And it's funny because where his bike was found, my boyfriend at the time lived like 4 houses down from there. It's like a dead end road. And so when we found his bike, my father was like, oh my God, where is he? Why is he not with his bicycle that we just bought him for his birthday 2 weeks prior? You know what I mean? And it was a brand new bike. We just bought it for him for his birthday. And so like a lot of like you said, like a lot of things start happening in your head and you start thinking of all these scenarios, like the gazillion scenarios you could possibly think of. So my boyfriend at the time, I'm like, why was my brother's bike found 4 houses down? And then the cops are looking into that and all that kind of stuff. And again, nothing ever pans out. And, you think to yourself, you're like, well, did you do something to my brother? Like that night, I wasn't with you. I was working and I went to a party. Like, where were you? And it just, it was all just so crazy. I just remember the bike being found. I was like, oh my God. And the cops took that bike and never, ever gave it back to us.
Wow.
No, all the stuff they took out of this house, they never gave back to us.
So they initially, it sounds like they looked at her, maybe you even considered, hey, this is right next to my boyfriend's house at the time. Your mind starts racing. You even start thinking, could my boyfriend have done something to him? That boyfriend relationship, that turned into a bad situation. That was just a horrible for me, not for my brother or for my dad. It ended up being like a horrible thing for me. And he broke up with me because he couldn't understand why my brother disappeared. He couldn't handle it. I'm like, okay, bye, see you later. You know what I mean? It was just a horrible thing. But again, you start thinking like my father's like, well, Connell was down the street from his house, like that. I don't know, like. You know what I mean? It's just you think these things could possibly have happened to him, and then you go on and on and on and on for years and years and years and years, and it's just if you always kind of look at that person, you always kind of have them in the back of your mind, like why was it found 4 houses down? Bike found four houses down from your house, like why? Like I don't know. It's just I don't know. And you never know, is it just a coincidence or, why did it just happen to be where it was dumped or?
It wasn't until I heard the story that it all made sense. It's not until we went to the police station and heard the story that he gave. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So, you know what I mean? Everything doesn't fall into place until the confession comes, and then you realize, oh my God, this is exactly what happened. So it just, I don't know what I wrote.
Yeah. And we're gonna,
I don't even say his name because he's horrible.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to talk about it. And I just wanted to ask you one more thing because this was something that I wanted to verify with you. Besides his bike, was there anything else of Jamie's, any other belongings or anything that you know of that was found?
No, there wasn't. It's funny that you say this. Again, his birthday was October 15th, and he disappeared on November 6th. So that October 15th, my father and I together bought him a bike, and I bought him a pair of hiking boots. For some reason, I saved that box. I still have it in my possession. It's upstairs in my walk-in closet, in the back of my walk-in closet. So I can verify with 99.9% the pair of shoes that he had on that day he disappeared, because they're brand new shoes, they're brand new hiking boots. Like, oh my God, like, you know what I mean? Like, I know exactly he has they're never found. Well, they say they could get him out of that pond, but I know for a fact that nothing else was found. But I know exactly what he had on in that outfit that he had on.
So you, in your mind, you've you know exactly what he was wearing, and if his remains are ever found, you think that'll tie right to what he had on.
Yep, he had a black T-shirt on, a black flannel shirt, and black jeans. That's what we wore back then. In the grunge days. Yeah.
Typical teenager clothing.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the case winds down a little bit. You and your dad are just going through 1,000 things, thinking, "Hey, what happened? Where is he?" And then all of a sudden,
my dad never wanted to talk about it. My father never wanted to talk about it, and my mother was like, "Oh my God, get me on the news, get me for a camera." So I had these like two extremes on either end of me, and I'm just like, "Yeah, I'll talk about it if you want, or I'll do whatever you want me to do." But you know what I mean? So I would talk about it with my friends, but my father he never wanted to talk about it, never wanted to speak about it, nothing.
Maybe
so it's hard because when I had feelings, I couldn't talk to him about it. I still to this day, I still can't talk to him about it.
Yeah, maybe he's a little bit more of a typical man that buries their feelings instead of talking about them.
He's going to have a heart attack someday because of it. No, I'm just kidding. I love my father.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it does, and he does like to talk about it because even with you, after he done talking with you, he called me. He's like, I don't like to talk about that. Now I'm all upset. Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, Dad, it's okay, but you talked about it. You got out when you needed to get out and say what you needed to say.
Yeah, and so when this man, and I'm only going to say his name once, but Louis Hunt Jr., he becomes involved in Jamie's case. He takes credit for murdering him. How did he come to be involved? Did he just go to the police and say, "Hey, this kid that's missing, I did something to him"? How did that unfold?
Louis went, I don't know, okay, let me see, the 92, it must have been the mid-90s, the Sarah Ann Wood case, the Jimmy Bernardo case, and I know that they think they can link them to some other cases, but I don't want to talk about that. I know Jimmy Bernardo and Sarah Ann Wood, those two had started brewing up. And then I forget the girl's name that he grabbed the backpack from. What's her name? I can't remember her name was. But anyways, that's when they caught him. And then they were looking at him and his what's it called? I can't think of the word. The type of child that he looked for when he was he's predator, when he was doing his predator stuff. Like
target.
Like what he wanted in his mind, obviously was he went for more for boys, and he went for young boys. He went for young boys on bikes. You know what I mean? And like so, I know when he got caught for trying to kidnap that girl in Pittsfield, I think. Mm-hmm. That's when they start going, okay, well, this guy's doing this, and now we're convicted him for this, so let's try to match him with this. And that always kind of pissed me off a little bit because I'm like, no, he got messed up with some, kids, and they took him, and I would never ever believe it was Louis Lent until I heard the story in the police department. Never. I didn't want to believe it. I just didn't want to believe it. My mother believed it from the very beginning, and I'm like, I don't know. My dad was kind of like wishy-washy too, but I never believed it until they told me the story in the police department.
It's Wednesday night after a long day, and the last thing you want to do is cook dinner from scratch. But you still want a satisfying, tasty meal without the guilt? Enter your freezer's sidekick, Cauliflower. From thin and crispy cauliflower crust pizzas to all-natural white meat chicken tenders and crowd-pleasing snacks, Cauliflower satisfies every craving. Cauliflower's products are your favorite comfort foods, but made better for you and gluten-free always. The best part? You don't have to sacrifice taste or time, so you can honor your cravings without compromising. Craving pizza? You can enjoy Cauliflower's delicious margarita pizza for only 370 calories for half the pizza. Looking for easy snacks that kids and adults alike will love? Cauliflower's baked, never-fried pizza snacks are nostalgia reimagined and ready in 5 minutes. Cauliflower's products are available in freezer aisles nationwide. Visit eatcauliflower.com/where-to-buy to find a store near you.
Let's be honest. Most of us have a love-hate relationship with wired bras. We love the lift, but hate the digging. We love the support, but hate feeling trapped. Well, Knix just changed everything with FreeFlex, a wired bra actually designed to work with your body, not against it. FreeFlex features a revolutionary, flexible wire that moves when you move, bends when you bend, and keeps everything exactly where you want it. No poking, no stabbing, no constant readjusting, just freedom to move. It also has a demi-cup shape for a natural lift with a lower neckline that flatters in everything from V-necks to dresses. And because it's from Knix, it's available in sizes for every body. Experience the first wired bra you'll actually want to wear all day. Visit Knix.com for 15% off your order with FreeFlex15. That's KNIX.com, code FreeFlex15 for 15% off. Knix.com.
And just to clarify too, that I've seen different reports on when. I've seen reports that it was as late as 2013 that this came about, but I've also seen reports where your dad said that he knew about this Louis Lent stuff before. When was this that you first learned about from the police story?
Well, the police never talked to me when I was younger. They always went through my dad, and then if my mom had to get involved, my mom would get involved. So I would always hear it secondhand from my dad, like he was talking to my stepmom, or if he was talking to his friends or neighbors or whatever. He never told me to talk to me directly, but I remember them mentioning it sometime in the sometime like mid to late 90s. That's when we first started hearing his name. Just because, they say, hey, we got this guy. He looks like he might have been able to do it, stuff like that. I didn't know that the Massachusetts State Police were going to talk to this guy once a month for like 20 years. I never knew that. Like, you know what I mean? And you hear the name and you're like, no. It was quite a bit up in the mid to late 90s. And I just didn't know. I didn't know anything because my father wouldn't tell me anything. So. And
what was, you mentioned hearing that story and then all of a sudden you believe that it was true. And what did you hear from the police? What was the story that they told you?
It was never the police, because obviously when something like this happens to you, you're like, we told you that Saturday night that he was not coming. You always kind of, you're kind of bitter about it. Like, and I've had a couple incidences. I hate to say I'm not the best Westfield resident, I've had a couple run-ins with the cops and been nasty and said some mean things to them and stuff, you know what I mean? But I was very, very, like, I felt like I was always alone in this. Like, you know what I mean? As a sibling, you know what I mean? You're not the parent, so you feel very alone as being a sibling, especially being, that was my only sibling I had, like, you know what I mean? So I went to psychics, and I went to about 7 different psychics, and each one of those psychics gave me a little piece of that story that they told us at the Westfield Police Department when they told us about Louis Lent. It was the weirdest thing, like water, like the way he looks and like his personality, like, they gave me all these little bits and this descriptions, and then when I go to tell me, this big, huge, elaborate story, I'm like, oh my God. Oh, it was just, it's like this awakening I had. I was like, oh my God, this really did happen to you. Now I understand, I understand it and I believe it. It was, I don't know how to describe it. My husband doesn't understand how I was like that too. I'm like, oh my God, this is really what happened, and I believe it. So. Did he detail, like, seeing your brother and deciding he was going to try and take him, and did he? We didn't get that. We didn't get that part of it. When they brought us, so my father called me one day. He's like, yeah, we got to go down to the police department about your brother. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, they got some more stuff on Louis Lent. I'm like, okay. So I was like, whatever. I go down there. I take the day off of work. I go down there. And they sit us down. It was a district attorney at the time, the state police, and the captain of the police department, and I think 2 detectives. And they sat us all down, just my father and I. My mother had passed away maybe about a year before. Thank God. Oh, my God, she would have just been, like, out of her mind. And they sat us down. They said, okay, this is what he confessed. They took him out of jail. He brought him from Friendly's, where he dropped off the bike, all that big, long hour drive out to that pond, which is out by, like, Pittsfield, Massachusetts, which is, like, like the Massachusetts-New York border, and dumped his body. And I'm like, oh, my God, that makes sense, because the psychics would be like, there's reeds. I could see, like, plant life in water, like, you know what I mean, like, all this stuff. And I was like, wow, that's what happened. really what happened. Well, I've never got to talk to him. We never see the tapes or supposedly the tapes where he confessed to song. We haven't seen any of that stuff. So I just have to go with what they told us, and either believe it or you don't.
Yeah. And you mentioned the information that he provided led police to search that Greenwater pond. They partially drained it. I know it's called a pond, but
they didn't. They never drained Greenwater
They didn't
pond.
drain it.
Where they found his bicycle, it's like a little pond, and they drained that. Now there's a big industry right over the top of where that was. Doesn't even exist anymore. It's like a big, huge building over the top of that. So that they did drain, but there was nothing. Greenwater, I
was going to say the Greenwater one, that's pretty big. That's over 80 acres and 50 feet deep in some spots.
Yeah, it's weird because it's between the Massachusetts Turnpike, Route 90, and then Route 20. It's like sandwiched in between two roads. And so at the time of night he did it, they say he did it at 4:30 at night. It would be dark by then in November. But still, you got people going back and forth, like going and coming home from work and all over the place. Like, I understand, like, like why somebody would be like, hey, what's that guy doing? Like, you know what I mean? Or come forth and say, hey, yeah, well, I guess it's been 20 years. Maybe somebody wouldn't remember that. But, you know what I mean? I'd be like, look at that guy over there dumping something in the water. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know.
It would look
That's
suspicious.
probably part of it. I'm just kind of fuzzy, a little bit fuzzy, but anyways.
You did that search when you found out they were searching that pond? Did that give you and your dad hope that maybe he would be found? And how disappointing was it when your family learned that his remains weren't found?
Well, they're still going to be searching it. I mean, you know what I mean? It's an ongoing thing. They did a really big search in the beginning where they had like helicopters and like airboats and all this kind of stuff. It was like a big, huge thing. And then the following year it scaled down and scaled down. And they didn't go last year, but I'm going to call them again and make sure that they get out there this year again. Because what they're using it as a training facility site. So they're not actively looking for him, but hey, while we're in the water, you know what I mean? And they have the boots that he had on, so that rubber should still be living in the bottom of that lake. So even if they find the rubber sole from that hiking boot, they know that he's there.
Yeah, so that would be a big clue that he is there. But
again, you have to believe it, though. I mean, you know, I have all my skeptic friends, and you know, I mean, they're just, you know, they're like, how do you know? How do you know? How do you know? Like, it's like Santa Claus. You have to believe, and if you don't believe, you're gonna go crazy. Like, I was so crazy for so many years. I'm like always looking at kids on their bicycles, like going all crazy. Ask my husband; he'll tell you. You know what I mean? I believe he's there, and so if I want to go see him, I can go there and talk to him. That's how I do it.
Yeah, and at the other side of the coin, you sort of talk about believing. Some of the stuff that Lent has said wasn't always accurate or truthful.
Yeah, that's another thing to take into consideration.
Do you think that everything he told you about your brother is true, or could he be lying about any part of it, or lying altogether?
I don't know. If I don't believe it, then I'm gonna go crazy. You know what I mean? And I don't want to have to be, you know, always searching and always like, you know what I mean? Like, I honestly, I can't do it anymore. I have to believe what he said was the truth. I have to believe. And I believe there was a lie detector test taken too, but again, I took a lie detector test and failed it. So, you know what I mean? I just know that there was a lie detector test. They said he passed it, that everything he said was truthful. And when they took him out in that van and they put him in friendlies, they said, okay, now show us. And he drove him right down the road. He goes, wait a minute, there wasn't a set of lights here. Wait a minute. He's like, this building wasn't here. Because, again, there's a huge building over where that pond was. He was like, this is not right. This is not right. But that's why I believe it. Because
he didn't know those places that weren't there before, so it seemed like to you like he was telling the truth.
Yeah, because somebody like that in their mind, they, like, think about all the little details of that over and over and over and over again. Because that's how they satisfy themselves by, like, you know, like, oh, I remember the way he smelled, I remember the way he looked, you know what I mean? I had the way his hair felt. You know what I mean? Like, they just think those things over and over again. So that's why he knew exactly where the bike was. But when he got there, he's like, wait a minute, there's not a set of lights here. And there, you know, because it was a dirt road. It was a dirt road. And behind some industrial buildings, now there's a big, huge thing over there. So he knew that something was wrong, but he knew that that's where the bike was. And that's why I believe it.
That's a good point, that those kind of people like to relive that stuff and
yeah, and their little heads.
Yeah. That's scary and disgusting.
And disgusting.
Yeah. So police at this point think that Jamie's case is solved, essentially, and
they've washed their hands of it.
They've closed the book on investigating, and furthermore, they said they're not going to prosecute Lent for Jamie's murder. How frustrating!
Because that whole thing when they told us that in the police station, okay, we're going to tell you, but you can never take him to court. And I'm like, well, that's not fair. Like, I want to have my Hollywood moment here, but he is where he needs to be, and he can't get out. Even if he wanted to, he's never, ever going to be paroled, ever. So my 15-year-old daughter is safe. Your children are safe. Everybody's children in this whole planet are safe because he needs to be where he is, and he's going to be there for the rest of his life. So I was like, fine, just tell me the story. That's the way I told my dad. I'm like, Dad, he's never, ever, ever getting out. This is life. He's there for the rest of his life. He will come out of there in a pine box. That's how he's coming out of there. You know what I mean? And so, I told my dad, I'm like, I'm fine with that. He can't hurt my kid. So, yeah, tell me the story.
And
it does kind of suck because you don't get that Hollywood, courtroom kind of drama. And I don't want to see that man ever. So it's, I don't ever want to see him. It would make me so enraged.
And how did your dad handle that? Did he want to face him down in court? Was he hoping to?
No. Well, he did in the beginning. In the beginning, it was kind of like, my father's like, if I ever, dads are always like, if I ever saw him out in the public and blah, blah, blah. I get it. And my husband would probably be the same with my daughter. But at the same time, we knew he needs to be where he's at, and he's never getting out. So it's like, why put more salt on that wound? You know what I mean? It's going to be salt on our wounds, not his. He's going to be like, oh, look at me. I'm in the public eye and blah, blah, blah. So.
And so in your mind and in your father's mind, you've accepted that this is what happened.
I do. My father sometimes is a little more. He's like, well, I don't know, Jack, because you don't have anything does not mean it didn't happen. You know what I mean? My father needs the tooth, the collarbone, my father needs something in his hand before he dies. And I'm like, yeah. You just have to believe it, Dad. And if you don't, then that's fine too, I guess. But I believe it. I just have to. Yeah. I just have to.
And I can't imagine being the parent of a missing or murdered child, but I think some of the people I've talked to that have had a loved one or a child murdered, they've said, as tough as this is, I couldn't imagine not knowing what happened to him and not having that final goodbye. So some ways,
it's funny. It's funny. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it's funny. I'd rather have my brother get on his bicycle and get hit by a car right outside my house than what happened to him, because at least I know he's dead. And at least I know where he is. You know what I mean? Even if he was cremated or whatever, you at least know where he is. And this killed my mother. Believe it or not, this actually killed my mother. My mother was so out of her mind because, first of all, she left her children here with her ex-husband. You know what I mean? So she didn't even have my brother and I. We weren't under her custody at all. So now she has a missing son that she wasn't even taking care of, and it drove her crazy. She would drink and do drugs and all this kind of crazy in and out of psychiatrists. It was so crazy. My mother died from her own personal conflicts because of this whole mess. So I know what it's like to watch somebody go through that. And every single time I see somebody whose child died, I see my mother's eyes in that person. It's just horrific. It's just absolutely horrific. Absolutely horrific.
It's obviously taken a toll on your father. I know from talking to him that he's had some health issues too. A lot of it's probably a result of all this that he's gone through.
Yeah, cigarettes don't help either.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah. So my father too. But again, my father's a very strong individual. It's just, with my dad, he just didn't want to talk about it. He just wanted to not ignore that never happened. He just didn't ever want to talk about it. You know what I mean? And I was the only one that could talk to him about it when he did talk about it. My mother, she care less. She really had nothing invested in my brother. You know what I mean? And so, unfortunately, I was the only one that would really talk to him. Nobody would talk to him. Maybe my Auntie Brenda would, my mom's sister. You know what I mean? But not really anybody else. My grandma a little bit. before she died. But, it's just, I don't know, it's awful.
And that's the unfortunate thing is there's other victims that are related to these cases that, that there's a ripple effect that other people's lives are forever changed and most of the time not for the better. So, I can totally understand how that would lead down a road of different issues. And I know this case is essentially closed. The police, you said, have washed their hands of it pretty much and said, this is what happened. That's it. And it sounds like for the most part, your family has accepted that. But if there's anyone listening that somehow knows something or has information or suddenly remembers something all these years later, who should they contact with to give that, to share that information with?
Oh, that'll be the Westfield Police Department.
And we'll be sure to give that phone number and information out.
Yeah, it would definitely be the Westfield Police Department. I really don't think at this point in time it will, because everybody, I was sort of popular in high school. You know what I mean? I knew a lot of people, and a lot of people would come forward and they're like, Jen, if I knew anything, I'd say something, or if I heard something from somebody else, I'd say something. Really, I think at this point it's pretty much done, except for that I need to get a hold of the district attorney's office and remind them to go diving this summer. That's the only thing I have to do. Because if I don't step up and say something, they won't do it. So that's the only part of it I have to do.
You're sort of like the squeaky wheel to get the grease to try and get them to keep looking and not.
Yeah, because don't forget, my mother's passed away. Once my father passed away, then it goes to me. So then I have to be the one that says, hey, what are we doing? Like, are we still diving? Are we still doing, what are we still doing? And I go to the Massachusetts State House every year for the Missing Children's Day. That's a club, let me tell you what you're part of. So I'm friends with the Bishes. I'm friends with the, all those different families here in Massachusetts that have experienced similar-ish type of cases. So I'm the only one that does it. My father doesn't want anything to do with that stuff, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I can see both of your points of view, where for him, it's just, he's got to be done with it. And for you, you want to keep going and make sure your brother's not forgotten. So,
yeah, I named my daughter after my brother, actually.
Oh, wow. That's a good way to honor his memory. Can't thank you enough for coming on and you get a chance to talk to your dad a little bit too, and for him sharing what he did with me. And I hope that somehow, some way you get, some piece or some answer. You get even if it's that boot that you mentioned, even if that's found, if you can get any kind of clues, something physical, I hope you can get something at some point.
Yeah, closure. I pretty much have closure, but again, it's not having the person, here or present. It's not having him present with you. Like being with you, because I have friends of mine that have lost parents and siblings and all this stuff, and they can go somewhere and physically be there. Like my best friend's mom, she passed away. I go to her gravestone all the time. My best friend lives in California. I live here. I'm always at her mom's gravestone. I think I do it because of the fact that I don't have my brother. My mother doesn't have a gravestone either, but I go and see her because I know where she's at. I know where she's buried. So I think I go there a lot too sometimes.
Yeah, and not having your brother a place to go and talk to him or just sit there and think about him has got to be.
I do sometimes go up there, but I go, my husband, I'm like, pull over, that kind of thing. So, or blow kisses them going down the Mass Bike. That's usually what I do.
Well, again, I can't thank you enough for sharing Jamie's story with us, and I hope that one of those dives produces something that helps you.
Yeah, I hope so too.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Missing Persons. If you can provide any information to help solve the case we discussed in this episode, we hope that you'll contact the appropriate authorities.
We hope that you'll tell your friends about Missing Persons and invite them to listen to the show. Word of mouth will really help us grow. And if you'd like to help us reach new listeners, please be sure to rate and review Missing Persons on the platform you're listening to us now on.
We'd like to tell you a little bit about our Patreon program. If you visit patreon.com/missingpodcast, you can sign up to help this podcast through ongoing monthly support. As a thank you, we'll give you an on-air shout-out, a thank you card and sticker, plus you'll get ad-free early access to every new episode of Missing Persons, as well as any bonus content.
Your Patreon support also goes directly towards helping the missing, because every dollar that we earn through Patreon will be split with 2 worthwhile causes that benefit the efforts to bring missing people home: CharlieProject.org and Private Investigations for the Missing. Your Patreon support will really go a long way towards helping. We hope you'll consider supporting the show. Just a reminder, new episodes of Missing Persons drop every other Saturday. If you want to find us on social media, you can search Facebook for Missing Persons Podcast. We're also on Twitter with the handle @missing_pod. And of course, you can always find us on our website, missingpersonspodcast.net. On behalf of Jess Betancourt, this is Mike Morford, saying thanks, and we'll see you next time on Missing Persons.
Missing Persons is produced under the name AbJack Entertainment by Mike Morford and Jessica Betancourt. It's hosted by Mike Morford and Jessica Betancourt, with writing and research by Jessica Betancourt and editing by Mike Morford. Be sure to listen every other Saturday for an all-new episode of Missing Persons.